as you mentioned, we've been working together for some time. I remember us really doing, I think the first show we did for public radio, for Catholic radio, was Encountering Christ in the Low Country. We did a couple of programs for them. I think they had some reruns and people who were on the production committee. A few of them left town, and of course, and now you are with a different project and successful in getting the project underway for BE, for Bishop England. And my 3 children, they graduated from Bishop England, and of course, none of them are interested in going into my career anyway, so. But thank you very much for the opportunity, and I know you've been asking for me to come, and so what should I talk about, Frank? She said, well, just inspirational. Let's share your story and how you got started, and just inspire about my now I'm being called a pioneer, trailblazer. All sounds like I've been around a long time, but I'll try to share some of what my career was about from the beginning to end. I'll share that now, and then I have some slides that will allow me to share some more, and then you can ask some information or questions during that time. So thank you again, and thank you all for being here and letting me share. A trailblazer is someone who's willing to risk and give a path for others to follow. And that path for me began in broadcasting in 1972 when the general manager of Channel 5, Buddy Evans, some of you might know him. Buddy was the husband of Happy Rain back in the early days of Channel 5. He hired me to be a public service director and co-host, talk show co-host, morning show, which later became the Morning Scene. Soon after that, I was hosting a weekly radio show called Black Showcase, which focused on talents of blacks across South Carolina. And once the doors were opened, opportunities in broadcasting came about very quickly, and I mentioned that early on, because I was certainly not prepared for this new career. I had graduated from college with a bachelor's degree in biology, with a minor in chemistry. I had never been in a television station or studio before I applied for the job, because I had planned on a career in medicine. So, but what happened, in the early days of the 70s, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, making job discrimination based on sex illegal, and the Federal Communications Commission licensing requirements to have women on their staff. Television stations across the country were under pressure to hire minority women for reporting and anchoring positions. And if they hadn't done that, then of course their license were being challenged and what have you. And it's probably that way across the country. Plus, in Charleston, black community leaders had been pressuring Channel 5 to hire blacks for on-air position. They knew that an opening was available at Channel 5, and they encouraged me to go and fill out an application, which I did. I was teaching at the time in the manpower training program, and I was pretty well settled for that for the time. And so I took my lunch hour off to go out and to fill an application at Channel 5. The general manager, Buddy Evans, came in from lunch. He asked me, he saw me fill out the application. He asked me if I had time to stay for an interview. I thought that I could, well, yeah, go ahead and do it. I didn't think I was going to get the job anyway. not with a degree in bachelor's degree in science and of course chemistry. And I said, once he hear what I have to say, well, you know, at least I would have said to the black leaders who encouraged me to fill the job that I did what you asked me to do, I didn't qualify, I didn't get the job. But that didn't happen. I went in, we had a quick interview, and I told him I was on my lunch hour, I had to get back to work. And he said, well, I'll ask you a few basic questions. I did. It must have worked out. He asked me to come the next day for an on-air audition. Now, I mentioned earlier I'd never been in a TV studio before. That went well, because the same day I went for the audition, he hired me as a public service director and co-host of that morning show I was talking about, Kaleidoscope, and then later it became a morning called Good Morning, the radio show, the television show was Kaleidoscope, and later changed to the morning scene. I was unsure of myself because I had no training in journalism, and I would have to learn on the job. So you can imagine what it is to publicly learn on the job, you know, making mistakes while everybody's watching you make mistakes. And I didn't want that to happen. So naturally, you know, I questioned my judgment and accepting the job in the first place. So what I did, I persuaded my boss where I was teaching to let me teach in the evening courses, and just in case I didn't, the job didn't work out, things didn't work out, and I would have to say, you know, maybe you don't like what you see and you might want to hire somebody else. But as a woman of faith, I thought, you know, I strongly believe that God puts you in the right place at the right time and for the right purpose. So I began to settle in, and I accept this new career opportunity as a mission to live my life with purpose, rather. And so failure was not an option. I had a huge responsibility to excel because I was paving the way for other women to follow. It's what trailblazing is all about. Taking one step at a time without seeing the entire staircase. I knew in my spirit that I could do this. God would not give me abilities, talents, and gifts, and life experiences unless He intended for us to use them for His glory. And that's what I had to work at and find out. So after 7 successful years at Channel 5, anchoring the live morning talk show and a weekly talent show, another opportunity in broadcasting came my way in 1979 when I was asked by the station manager at Channel 2 to join their news team as a reporter. There were more barriers to overcome because, again, although I had my feet wet in broadcasting a little bit, the role of the job of a reporter was something I had to also learn. So I worked hard to prove that I was just not a convenient black face to cover certain stories in the black community. I worked hard to prove that I could handle any story assigned to me. So I did, and I was soon recognized as an award-winning reporter. Then in 1981, I made history by becoming the first black female in South Carolina Lowcountry to anchor major primetime news. I was given the opportunity to co-anchor the 6 and 11 o'clock news with Tom Allen. I was also a special assignment reporter. By my investigative reports had a deep impact on the communities, not only in the Lowcountry, but across the state, putting social issues in the spotlight. I won an award in every category available to a news reporter from the South Carolina Education Association. When I learned that 1 in every 5 teenage girls in the state, mostly blacks, would become pregnant before the age of 18, I reported on the problem in a 5-part award-winning series titled Teen Pregnancy and Epidemic. In 1980, I was one of few reporters and the only female in the state allowed behind the walls of the now closed Central Correctional Institution in Columbia to cover prison overcrowding and other major problems in the state's main prison at the time, which housed the infamous Cell Block 1 and death row inmates. I was also recognized by the governor for a series of reports I produced in 1999 on the state's Save the Children program, designed to shock teen juvenile offenders into going straight and to avoid prison life. One of the many highlights of my career and work at Channel 2 was being assigned a story to cover a White House story when local activist Septima Clark was presented a Living Legacy Award by President Jimmy Carter. This assignment also gave me the opportunity to join network reporters in the White House press room, a rare opportunity for journalists of color in the 70s and 80s. I left Channel 2 in 1985 to accept a job at the College of Charleston as Director of Public Information. And as fate would have it, in 1995, my career in broadcasting came about again when I was asked to, by SCE-TV and the college to host a 30-minute time slot for a weekly radio show. That's when Conversations with Joan was born. I was given the job of hosting and producing the show, which aired statewide on ETV radio stations that lasted for 15 years. The show was also available on Apple Podcasts. During that time, I produced more than 800 shows and interviewed over 1,600 national, regional, and local personalities on a variety of topics that shaped the political and cultural universe. My guests included interviews with Michelle Obama, Ann Romney, Cindy McCain, all for a show about the role of spouses of the 2008 presidential campaign. I interviewed Michelle in a phone call from her home in Chicago. And although it was not a face-to-face interview, I had to go through all of this Secret Service requirements and everything before I was able to call her. When I called, of course, the Secret Service answered the phone, and of course they told me how much time I had, and if I hadn't ended the interview at that particular amount of time, of course they would cut me off. But I was able to get that interview done, and of course this was before she was First Lady. But, and I also interviewed, when I interviewed Ann Romney, she was in town and she was able to, of course she's the wife of Mitt Romney, she was able to come to the college and for a face-to-face interview. And that was taped along with the interview I did with Cindy McCain. And her interview was taped while she was on her husband's campaign bus. And so that was how I was determined to get the three ladies rather than focused on one for that particular story for the radio. While at the college, I received a Southern Regional Emmy from the National Academy of Television Arts and Science the Atlanta chapter, for outstanding achievement in television programming and education. I was recognized by work as a producer for a civil rights documentary we produced titled, "Where Do We Go From Here? A Journey in Search of History and Dialogue." The documentary is about an unlikely group of 40 riders on a civil rights tour. Black, white, young, old, scholars, students, clergy. We all traveled about 2,000 miles to talk to the foot soldiers of the movement to learn firsthand of the perils faced by protesters as they peacefully stood against oppression. Stops on the tour included the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, and that was an extremely interesting, that whole scene, because we, in the hotel, which is now a museum, they took us to the room where Dr. King was before he was asked to walk out on the balcony where he got shot. And in that room, it's exactly the way he left it before he walked out of that room. They had everything preserved in that room. The bed was pulled back a little bit. I think he had been eating some food. All of those things, that room is exactly that way. If you have a chance, that's a good place to go and visit when you're in Memphis. And with the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, where the 4 little girls were murdered in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, I had an interview one of the grandparents of one of the young girls. And of course, in that area too, it's more, some of the things there are preserved, and they have sort of a museum in the basement of the church, and they took us in the area where the girls were actually sitting when the bomb went off. Well, at least the area of the church now is refurbished, but they showed us that was where it all happened. The documentary was broadcast during prime time on South Carolina educational television. The most important part of my life now is, of course, my family and the work I do for the community and my church, St. Patrick, where I'm a lector, a Eucharistic minister. I'm chair of the Pastoral Council and the Buildings and Grounds Committee. I'm also an active member of the South Carolina Council of Catholic Women, and has served in leadership roles in all levels of this national organization. I'm currently on the Leadership Commission for the Council. We educate women about issues of interest to the church and society, and encourage them to provide service based on Catholic values, and that's to all women. Through the National Council, our members across the country learn leadership skills, and they're trained to deal with issues such as domestic violence and human trafficking. In 1999, I received the most important recognition of all, the Papal Medal, the Pro Ecclesia et Pontifex, the medal that I'm proudly wearing now. And the reason I'm wearing it is because when I got it under Bishop Thompson, and he said, it's not a medal that, you would wear all the time, but you should be proud of it. And he said that every opportunity you get, you wear it. And if someone comes and asks you about it, you tell the story. And it's all on the work that you did to receive this medal. And I was recognized by Pope John Paul II for sustained and exceptional service to the Pope and the Church. And of course you know, Frank, You know, it's not an easy process. You know, you send in your application and everything that you had ever done up to that point, they look at it, they scrutinize it, and in time, they will let you know that your name has been accepted for this outstanding recognition. Upon my retirement from the College of Charleston in 2009, I was again presented with a recognition that I will also cherish. Congressman James Clyburn honored me with the Congressional Tribute, another award that isn't easy to come by. At the opening of the 111th Congress is when he read my background and said that my name was placed in congressional record to recognize the 28 years of outstanding accomplishment as a trailblazer in broadcast journalism in South Carolina. I'm proud to say that my niece Tessa Spencer has followed in my footsteps. She is anchor on the 6 and 11 o'clock newscast on Channel 4, and I'm happy to be her mentor. And I didn't mention that I am a convert. My husband is a cradle Catholic. He's, you know, I think converts work hard. You know, you work hard because you're trying to. How many converts we have in here? You work hard because you feel that, you know, every cradle Catholics are always talking about being good Catholics, you know. And so as a convert, it's like, well, I'm going to work hard to prove that I'm a good Catholic too. And so that's what I did. I became a Catholic while I was a student at South Carolina State University, where I was, in 1962, where I was active in the Newman Club for Catholic students on campus. I attended Christ the King Church, which was walking distance from the campus. Of course, we had to cross a railroad track, and this little quaint church was there, and we were proud to go to Mass, the group of us, and thank goodness I still had several friends from Charleston. So we attended church there in school, and of course we attended St. Peter's when we were at home. Our priest was a member of the Redemptorist Order who came to Orangeburg specifically to minister to Black Catholics during that time. Because throughout much of the 60s, there were 2 Catholic parishes in Orangeburg, Christ the King for Black Catholics and Holy Trinity for whites. The archives from the Diocese of Charleston note that Bishop Ernest Unterküffler decided to merge the 2 parishes in 1967, so Christ our King no longer exists. And the same year, my home parish, St. Peter's, merged with St. Patrick. So St. Patrick is now my current parish. About achieving a balance during my 28 years, I'll share what my former boss, Virginia Friedman, who's also a Catholic, she hired me at the college. She was interviewed by a reporter from the Post-Courier for an article that they were writing about my retirement. She said, and this was in the article, Joan is a very balanced person. She is very much about her work as a broadcaster, but also cares very much about her church and family. That's what I'm trying to learn from Joan. If you're able to achieve that balance in your life, you're able to achieve the peacefulness she possesses. She is successful because she truly is interested in the people she interviews. She is never about upstaging or trying to outshine her guests. It's always about them and trying to bring their stories to the public to bring about change. She went on to say that when you're on television, people know your face. So lots of people, especially African Americans, know who Joan is. When we go on short walks, and we did this a lot during our lunch break at the college, I'd be amazed at how many people will hang out their car windows yelling, Joan, Joan Mack. She said, I used to say, well, I'm going out with St. Joan. And she said, these years, and still, this always, and it still happens to this day. I thanked her for that comment. I didn't even know that she recognized all of these things when she shared it with the reporter. I thanked Virginia for sharing this with the public. I feel that with all of the awards and outstanding recognition for my work over those years is a true measure of my success, and that I accomplished my mission as God would have it. Thank you for sharing that. Now I have some slides here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about these slides, what's on the topic of the slides, and then of course you can ask questions if you wish. I think I have this. Okay. Now he said if I press the red button, no, okay. This one is just it's an advertisement of it's an advertisement for the Catholic radio show. Not Catholic, I'm sorry, it's an advertisement for Conversations, the show that I did for 15 years. And we finally got a new studio at the college for us producing the show. And this show was a show that, this slide is a slide of what they call Radio Row. We were doing we're covering the 2008 Democratic presidential debate in Myrtle Beach. And of course, I was invited to be one of the reporters to cover that for Conversations. And this is Ann Romney, and she came to the college and came to my office. And let's see. I'll go to the next slide. And one of the topics that we covered extensively locally and on the state level was foster care. I served on the Foster Care Review Board. I was appointed by the governor to serve on the Foster Care Review Board, which I did for about 6 years. And it was our job to review cases, place children in good homes, or mainly focused on rehabilitating the parents to get the children back in their homes. I met Miss Claudia Bain. That's Miss Bain in the younger days, and this is Miss Bain because we still support her. I met her, and she impressed me because she, children who were disabled were children who she wanted to have placed in her house, in her home. And at all times, she said that when there is a a need to have, if a child is born at MUSC or one of the local hospitals, they always called her and asked her could she give them housing temporarily. And in most cases, because they didn't have enough homes for these children, she ended up keeping most of them for a longer period than they had said. And so she had 5 of these children originally, these children here, and there was another one that she had when she came to our church. We hosted them for a Christmas party. Chris is the oldest. She adopted Chris. She adopted Marie, and she adopted Damien. She had them as babies. Chris was born and was actually left in the hospital by his mother. He is a deaf mute. They brought him to Miss Bain because his mother never came back for him. So Miss Bain eventually adopted him. Both of these, they're grown young men and women now, and they are, she's just, I think she's probably her senior year in college, and he has a job working. Beverly Buford is chair of the St. Patrick's Women's Guild. We started supporting Miss Bain when the children were babies. We started giving her diapers and things that she would need for infants. And over almost a 20, 30-year period, we had been supporting her, and we still do to this day. Her needs are different. We ask her what she needs as the children are growing, and so that's what we support her with. And we also give her a check every year to help her with her utilities and what have you, because she has some serious health issues. Her husband passed years ago, so, and of course, she doesn't get that much help from the DSS or any other agency. And if we don't give her money, we take her groceries whenever we can. And so we have, this is and now on the diocesan level, this is another project that we're trying to support on the diocesan level, foster care. Okay, let's see, and I have, and this is yet another look back. This is Dr. King Sr. He came to Charleston, and he was on a program for the YWCA, and they asked me to be the MC, and I was able to meet and interview him. This picture I included because Harriet was my mentor, and she started me on the leadership track here in Charleston with the Council of Catholic Women, serving on local levels, and then we went on over to doing work, and I was mentored by her to become a leader on all levels of the organization. This is my first day on the job with Ken Crook, the morning show we co-hosted. Ken stayed around for about 2 years, and after that I hosted the show by myself. And I look back at some of the things that we did on the show, and I said, I was like the local Oprah Winfrey. I could have been making money that Oprah was making, because we had exercise segments, we had cooking segments, we had a variety of things that made Oprah a billionaire back then. And of course, Cardinal Gregory, when I was director of the Atlanta Province of Catholic Women, and we meet quarterly in Atlanta, he would always come and support the Catholic women, and we got to know him, but we actually knew his work as Bishop of Atlanta long before that, because our first black priest for St. Patrick in 1978, Father Figaro, who was a priest in Chicago, came to serve at St. Patrick. They were friends. So the bishop in the 70s and 80s actually came and celebrated Mass at St. Patrick. And of course, this is Tom Allen and I. We co-hosted the 6 and 11 o'clock news on Channel 2. And so, and of course, there are lots more pictures, and this took me back when I was asked to do this presentation today. And Frank asked before, and I said, well, you know, I don't have much to talk about. I can give an inspirational presentation, but what it did for me was it took me back, and I was able to go through all of the stuff that I have. And so why have I not started writing memoirs, all the stuff that I have, or get somebody to write it for me. And I've been asked a couple of times, you know, to do that, and I still might do that, because there are lots of things, lots of people I've met. For instance, Newt Gingrich, you know, the former Secretary of State, I interviewed him by phone, and that came about very interestingly. I was at a conference for the National Council of Catholic Women at our head office in Arlington. I was at the Reagan International Airport getting ready to leave that Sunday morning, and so I was in line trying to pay for a newspaper, and this person behind me said, how are you? And I said, fine. It was also had a newspaper. And he said that, he said, where are you from? And I said, oh, from South Carolina. You know, everybody was just talking friendly, from South Carolina. And he said, well, what do you do in South Carolina? I guess like any politician, he was just getting information. He said, I said, I host a public radio show. And he said, that's interesting. He said, do you have guests? Do you set up guests? Do you have national guests? Or just as a local, whatever? He started interrogating me. And I told him, I said, no. I said, yeah, I host the show, I produce it, I get my own guests. And he said, then I realized who he was. I said, I don't know who you are. I said, you're Newt Gingrich. And he said, yes, I am. And he said, and I just wrote a book. And would you be interested in having me as a guest on your show? And I thought he was just kidding. And he said, no, he said, no, seriously. He said, I'd like to publicize the book. And why not in South Carolina? And so he said, give me your name, your number, and I'll have my secretary to call you on Monday morning. This was a Sunday. And I said, oh, yeah, right. I said to myself. And so, but Monday morning, I did get a call from the secretary. And she told me what happened, and she said, I want to send you a copy of this book. I think it's something with the 20th century change. I should have written down the article of the book, because it became a popular book. And and so he called, we started up, we had a good interview. And of course, James Clyburn learned that Newt Gingrich was on the show, and he said, you know, you have to balance this off. And so he said, well, he didn't call, his secretary called, and then I got on, got on the phone, he said, yeah, he said, I'm willing to be a guest on the show. And so we set that up. But his was a little different because he was my majority whip at the time. So that was really intensive with Secret Service and what have you. So 2 days before he wanted to come to the college. So 2 days before that happened, I heard a knock on my office door, and I looked out, and then these guys in the blue suits and whatever, and I was, oh, what did I do now? And it ended up being Secret Service men, and they came in and told me what they needed. They just want to look at the place where he was going to have the interview, checked all of that out to make sure everything was okay. And so then they left. And so the next, when it was time for him to actually come for the interview, someone said that, what's going on in this building there? Three huge black Suburbans or whatever, cars outside in front of the office here, the building here. And when we found out, it was, again, a car of Secret Servicemen who came ahead of him, and they came, and they parked right in front of the building, and so everybody was curious about that. But we had the interview, and that was another experience, and another part of my being able to successfully handle whatever came in to us in producing the show. And there were lots of other interesting segments because I have interviewed a lot of people. I interviewed a lot of people from across the country and of course locally as well. And I thank God for that opportunity and the fact that I can share that, and I think all of my opportunities made a difference. And I can tell from all the letters that came into me that I still have people, women who may have been abused, and they called me and they wanted additional information or whatever the topic was that impacted, even if it was 3 or 4 persons' lives, that I was able to share information to help make their lives better.
Joe,
any questions?
Joe, well, first of all, Joe, thank you so very, very much. And you should work on those memoirs because, you know, the modest soul that you are here, you know, was a lot, as you said, there's a lot of kind of, you know, prodding and encouraging, and but once you start summoning those things, that's that's a lot of memoirs. So thank you so very much.
I remember listening to your shows.
Yes. On Thursdays at 6 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
So we do have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions here. We're running a little
I've got it
long
right
here. Thank you so much. Any questions out there? I've got one. I will just throw out to you. So as a trailblazer, you know, you are oftentimes by yourself. So how did Christ inform your thoughts, and you know, and how did His Holy Spirit strengthen you in those times when you are kind of out there by yourself?
Well, in the very beginning, I had nightmares, you know, every night, you know, before the show. It was a live show. And I really didn't want to fail. And I felt that this was something, after thinking about it, that had I not been directed to this job, this new career, then I wouldn't have had it. And so I felt that I was indeed put in the right place at the right time. So what I did was I prayed a lot. I said my rosary a lot. And at times, at times, but I still do. I sleep with, let me see, did I bring it with me? I have a 10-decade rosary that I sleep with, and I did that also because when I felt that I couldn't really figure things out, you know, I just prayed on it and then I went on to sleep, you know. And for some reason, the next day, you know, the answer came. The situation presented resolutions for that. And because I could have easily said no, you know, I want to pursue the career in the medical field. And who knows, maybe that wouldn't have worked out. So when I was because I did, in the summer, try to get jobs after, during the summer break from college, I would go to New York where I had brothers and try to get jobs in research or wherever, you know, the one was available. And I did not get those jobs. They got very close. I remember the last one I did was at Einstein Medical College in New York, in the Bronx, and I was like one of 2 persons, you know, for the interview that left out of a slew of interviews. And of course, the young man got the job and I didn't. And so I'm thinking that this was, I didn't know it at the time, but this was meant for me, because I could have easily, if I knew and I had planned for it and gotten a degree in journalism, it might not have come as easy. And so that's why I think I came in with a drive, maybe more forceful than someone coming into the business today. Of course, someone with me, not with a journalism degree, would not even get in the door, because it's very competitive right now. You know, it's not easy. It's wide open now, thanks to, you know, people like myself who open doors for young women, not just black women, but young women in general. And they were still strong enough to handle all of the pressures in the newsroom, because they were not all very fair, and you have to be strong in order to work at it and have it last. So my faith had a lot to do with it, you know, and a lot of praying, and God was there, you know, because I was honest about what you're saying, that, you know, I was a personality. I was treated special. I was treated like a personality. And like the picture I showed you in the very beginning, the title picture, that story was done in 1979. Early on, when I was actually moving into my career, I would go into a grocery store. I'd be asked for autographs or whatever, and then there were people who knew who I was, but they had put me on this pedestal that they didn't want to approach me, and because maybe they felt that I would have not greeted them. I was better than or what happened than them. And so that kind of happened a couple of times, and I would turn around and say hello to them. And then they were shocked by that I even recognized them. So when I did my very first article to get off on the right track, you know, they had a different focus for the article, but I said I wanted to be centered around the fact that that I was approachable, and that I was a regular person. And that's how they labeled the article, because I was there to do a job, and so that's.
Well, thank you,
Okay.
Joan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that witness. Thank you.
And thank you all.